Let's in a moment have some prayer requests. I'd like to ask those of you that were up here, those a number of you were down busy downstairs, so you couldn't know what happened up here in any way. But normally, I try for us to improve what we're doing, especially when it comes to end of life issues. You know, a lot a lot is at stake, extremely critical time, and so from my perspective, it's very hard sometimes to make any judgment of what happened because I'm here and I'm not. I guess I almost say I'm not even listening to myself, and I'm not being funny about it. It's just kind of difficult to know and gauge how things are going. But some of you did notice that most of the people, or a good percentage of the people we had up here, were Catholic. And you notice that by their sign of the cross and how they cross themselves and all that. And so it was a great opportunity for the gospel, um, but a difficult one too. But any input before we, you know, Miss Abby loved sitting there. She had front row seat. She could listen, you know. We try to stick to the schedule, and some things get skewed, you know, so it's kind of difficult. But we had a schedule. Any input on yesterday's service? Anybody? Miss Marlies? I'm sorry?
It would be nice to know when we can take the food out downstairs.
Oh.
Get it out and then back in the oven.
Well, wisdom on the part of the kitchen people is to send a runner.
We did send our scouting.
You know what happened? What happened is when I opened it up, which you know I normally open it up to people too, and then the truth is at some point I quit looking because somebody else gonna lift up a hand, and I felt the need to stop. And I think it was 6 or 7 people that spoke. But I tell you something good. There was a man here, I think the very last one that spoke. Also, he professed himself Catholic. But he said, I came here angry, he said. He said, I was very angry when I came, and no peace at all. He said, but after listening to all this, he said, I'm not angry anymore. And that's the neighbor. And so I will seek opportunity to find him again. So we pray for Rafael. That's his name. And but to me that was good. And so the overall, he felt like okay, gave him a sense of peace. I guess from his perspective, he was angry because what a great loss. And indeed, it's a great loss to family. But from the other perspective, okay, looking at the perspective of his, it like I guess his anger went down. And so I was encouraged by that, you know. So like I said, he told me, he said, I'm Catholic, he said, and I was angry, no peace. And he said, I'm not angry anymore, and I have a sense of peace. But like I said, I would really like to go back and find him. So I have a good excuse, you know, going to visit there. I give it a while when my wife returns, that way I can just mosey on her unless I go with someone. So anyway, so you pray for him. Brother Bradley.
Yeah, I'll just say as a general rule, just kind of those questions say, are you going to need video support or audio? Yeah.
But you know, and that will be something that we do have to do. That we'll do. I'll come back to that thought in a second. But there were things like the food. There was so much food that it was bought, but so much food that was brought. Because the truth is, like my wife said, in talking to me, Jonah, who thinks she was out of it. You know, she just was not with it. And I mean, it's quite understandable. So communication was very, very poor. And you can't blame her. But it is a good point. Under better circumstances, at least maybe more time. Because from Thursday to Tuesday, it was very quick. And so, but again, every time, like my wife talked to her and somebody would be on the phone, she said, or like Miss Jonah said, I'll call you later because it was so much chatter. And when I did talk to her, it was the same. But yeah, but that part, now this is what I like to make a comment. I think it would be good for us if we invest on having something that is, let's say, permanently set, so that all we have to do is put a CD on the computer or whatever, and that will remove, whether they tell us or not, that will remove that worry out of it, and it will be an investment because equipment does cost money, but I think in the end it will be much more helpful to families as well as to the church itself. If we have visiting missionaries or whatever, but I think that's something for us to consider, to have a permanent setting so that we can just, like if we were expecting that to be. So anyway, in fact, if we have a quorum, I can make the motion that we do set it up, or however you say it, that we will have a permanent setting. If it means to have, some churches have it hanging from the ceiling or whatever, but that it would be again, so we quit finagling. So I guess we don't do business enough to even know which way we're going or coming. I make the motion that we do.
I'll second that.
Okay. If you are in favor, if you have questions or concerns, this is the time to voice them out. What I'm suggesting is, here's what we were doing. We have these tables here, trying to put a computer, which I knocked at one point down, trying to put the projector, and so in essence, and then with an extension cord or two, it becomes cumbersome. And like I said, the good thing, the computer, I didn't break it because the cord saved it. It just plunked, like, ah. And then also with the sound, if we try to put a mic next to the little speaker, it's always an issue. So that, I believe, is something that it would not hurt us to if we say, well, the funds are not there, well, we can just make a special offering for that. I say I put so much and whatever, and then all of a sudden we have it. It's not necessary that we have to buy it tomorrow, but I believe it's something that needs to be done already. So, brother,
I second it.
okay. Anybody has any questions in that regard? No. You might remember with Miss Elizabeth, we also had a big problem. And that one was, I think we used 3 or 4 computers in the end. And so that was a major ordeal, and it was the same thing. And so I think and families, when they're hurting, it's no time for that. So, okay, Ms. Judy?
The other thing, it makes so that Brother Bradley can travel without us having to worry whether it's going to be recorded or not.
Well, we can always cancel his travel arrangements,
Well, that's true.
If Miss Abby gets right with God, she won't be taking him away on Sundays, but that's another story. But yeah, no, it will facilitate. It will facilitate so that just about anybody can take care of that. Okay. All right. So then, all those in favor, unless you have another question or comment on this, or even a concern about it.
Amen.
All those in favor, lift up your right hand. Good deal. All right, and then we'll. Hang on a second. It's just the sound. Stephanie, when you guys get home, you explain that to her, okay? She's the blonde.
I know. I have red hair.
Okay, you were here yesterday, right?
I was.
Did you see what the mess we had here?
Yes.
Okay, so what we want to avoid is we want to have a projector that is set already, and whatever it takes so that the missionary comes and says, do you have a means for, and shows a CD, that yeah, we can just pop it in there, voila, all we have to do is shut the lights. Same with funerals, because like I said, Miss Elizabeth was an ordeal, this one, it was an ordeal. Sorry, we already voted about it. Go ahead.
No, it's nothing but the vote, but just hearing all of this and kind of knowing what I went through for family once, the church, and I know this is.
Hey, hang on a
struggle
second.
with
Hey,
this.
hold on, because I do have two people with the thing on. Might as well.
I know we're a bit challenged with technology, but I think there's a few of us in here who know a little bit. If we add it all together, we for somebody or a team to be responsible for the technology when it comes to funerals or even we have special services, like Miss Judy said, but a didn't have to not be able to record without them. So I mean, I'm all for us getting the equipment, but I think it still needs to have some kind of structure in the sense that I'm thinking if we have a form or checklist that we ourselves can go through and speak with the family to say, do you need this? Do you need that? Do you need this? And we check off rather than everybody trying to bombard the family member with questions and kind of not knowing what's going on. I'm sure you would have spoken or the others would have spoken or would have dealt with Ms. Jonah going to them as a family. And so if we can get that in place, and that would be something that's on the church's file or what have you, that we just pull that. The same thing even with the technology, rather than coming with their CD, usually persons would send them the information and the church creates that whole video.
I'll answer the first, yeah. The first is this. So,
The family puts it together because it's a very personal CD. The church couldn't.
Yeah, but when they send it to the church or whoever the team is can vet it and run it through a couple of times and see where the glitches and the bumps are.
Transfer.
Yeah.
the first one is not to reinvent the wheel because, okay, I cannot reinvent the wheel, so to speak. And the reason I'm asking input is because there is always will have blind spots. And while we may think we have it covered, we don't. So if most of us have experienced a form of loss. You can say, these are the things that, let's say I experienced here. These are things that maybe I wish I had been asked or whatever. And then we can put that such a checklist that we can run through that for what needs to be done or what needs to be addressed, at least for the sake of family. The CD, what you said is true. It's a personal thing. Normally, the funeral home puts that together. Sometimes there are some surprises that, unfortunately, we just were like, "Oops, how did that sneak into the church?" But we all here, being children of God, the expectation would be that if it's my funeral, that my wife is not going to put stuff that would be inappropriate. I made the announcement yesterday. No, I made the announcement to the family. I guess it was on Sunday. That okay, you want to speak? Don't forget that you're in the house of the Lord, and that while you want to honor the person, you want to make sure that you honor God. And so, because I'm still the pastor and I'm still up, it's still my responsibility to make sure of that. Now, sometimes people will still sneak in on you. Okay? So, but yes, I do believe that a checklist is still like a very good idea. But again, because I cannot think of all the things, you guys may have some things already